Welcome back to our weird world, where each week we gather around the bonfire to uncover the world's most fascinating legends and mysteries. Tonight, we bring you the story of Katerina and Baba Yaga. So sit back, relax, and let the flames of our campfire guide you through the shadows of the unknown. In the dense enchanted forest of Eastern Europe lived a being called Baba Yaga, a figure both feared and revered by all who knew of her. Baba Yaga was an ancient witch, a crone with a long hooked nose and iron teeth. She resided in a hut that stood on giant chicken legs, turning endlessly to face or flee from the approaching visitors. Her home was surrounded by a fence made of human bones, with skulls sitting atop each post, glowing with an eerie, unnatural light. Among the many tales of Baba Yaga, the story of Katerina the Beautiful is one of the most well-known and beloved. It is a tale of bravery, magic, and the triumph of goodness over evil. In a faraway kingdom, there once lived a merchant and his wife who had a single daughter named Katerina. She was the most beautiful girl in the village, with hair as dark as a raven's wing and eyes as bright as the morning star. However, when Katerina was still a young child, her mother fell gravely ill. On her deathbed, Katerina's mother called her close and handed her a small wooden doll. "My dearest Katerina," she said weakly, "take this doll and always keep it with you. If you ever find yourself in trouble, give the doll a little food and a little water, and it will help you." Katerina's mother passed away later that night, and her father, heartbroken, eventually remarried. His new wife, however, was a cruel and jealous woman, with two equally spiteful daughters of her own. They resented Katerina for her beauty and kindness, and did everything in their power to make her life miserable. Katerina's stepmother forced her to do the dirtiest and the most difficult of household chores, yet no matter how much work she did or how harshly she was treated, Katerina remained kind and cheerful. She always kept the little wooden doll her mother had given her close by, treating it as a confidant, and in return, the doll always seemed to listen and understand, its very presence a close tie to her mother, giving her comfort in the darkness of the night. Years passed, and Katerina grew even more beautiful, while her stepmother and stepsisters became more bitter and envious. One evening, the merchant was called away on business, leaving Katerina alone with her cruel family. Sensing an opportunity, the stepmother devised a plan to rid herself of Katerina once and for all. That night, the stepmother gave each of her daughters and Katerina a task to spin thread. As the night grew darker, the stepmother extinguished all the lamps in the house, leaving the girls in pitch-black darkness. "Someone must go to Baba Yaga's house to fetch a light," she declared, knowing well the dangers that awaited anyone who approached the witch's dwelling. The stepsisters, terrified, immediately refused, as she expected, and her stepmother turned to Katerina and begged her to go. Katerina, fearing for her life but unable to say no, took her little wooden doll and set off into the dark forest. The journey through the forest was treacherous, and the trees whispered warnings and the shadows played tricks on her mind. Yet Katerina pressed on, guided by the comforting presence of her doll. After hours of walking, she finally came upon Baba Yaga's hut, standing on its tall chicken legs, turning and creaking in the moonlight. With a deep breath, Katerina approached the fence and bones and called out, "Grandmother, Baba Yaga, I have come for a light." The hut ceased its turning, and the door creaked open to reveal Baba Yaga, her eyes glowing with a menacing light. She rode out in her mortar, wielding her pestle and a broom made of silver birch in hand. "Who dares disturb my peace?" Baba Yaga screeched. "It is I, Katerina," Katerina replied, trying to keep her voice steady. "My stepmother sent me to beg you for a light." Baba Yaga eyed her carefully, her gaze lingering upon the wooden doll Katerina carried. "Very well, Katerina," she said, "but you must prove your worth. Complete 3 tasks for me, and I shall grant you what you seek. Fail, and you shall never leave this forest." Baba Yaga led Katerina into her hut, which was filled with strange and wondrous objects. Jars of peculiar ingredients lined the shelves, and a cauldron bubbled over the fire. She handed Katerina a large sack of mixed grains. "Your first task," she said, "is to sort all these grains into separate piles by dawn. If you succeed, you will move on to the next task. If you fail, you shall be my dinner." Katerina took the sack and sat by the fire, her heart sinking at a seemingly impossible task. She remembered the enchanted doll her mother had given her. Taking it out, she whispered, "Dear doll, help me, I cannot do this alone." The doll's eyes glowed faintly, and it whispered back, "Rest now, Katerina. I will sort the grains for you." Exhausted, Katerina lay down and fell into a deep sleep. When she awoke, the grains had been meticulously sorted into separate piles. Baba Yaga inspected her work, her eyes narrowing with suspicion but saying nothing. That night, Baba Yaga gave Katerina her second task. "Clean my hut and yard until they are spotless," she commanded. "You have until sundown. If you succeed, you will move on to the final task. If you fail, you shall be my dinner." Katerina set to work, scrubbing the floors, washing the windows, and sweeping the yard. Despite her best efforts, the task seemed endless. Once again, she turned to the enchanted doll. "Dear doll, help me," she whispered. "I cannot do this alone." The doll's eyes glowed brightly. "Rest now, Katerina. I will finish cleaning the hut for you," it said. So Katerina rested, and the doll worked tirelessly. By sundown, the hut and the yard were spotless. When Baba Yaga came back to the hut, she inspected the work, her eyes blazing with anger. "You've completed this task as well," she said through gritted teeth, "but you still have one more to go." On the following day, Baba Yaga gave Katerina the most difficult task of all. "Fetch me water from the well in the heart of the forest and bring it back in the sieve," she commanded, handing Katerina a small, perforated sieve. "If you succeed, I shall grant you what you seek. If you fail, you shall be my dinner." Katerina looked at the sieve and knew it was impossible to fetch water with it. Still, she dutifully made her way through the forest to the well, her heart heavy with despair. Upon reaching it, she sat down and began to weep. As her weeping slowed and the tears streaming down her face began to dry, she heard the doll's voice. "Don't weep, brave Katerina," the doll said gently. Katerina held out the perforated vessel. "But the task is impossible, and Baba Yaga will surely devour me if I fail." The doll smiled kindly. "Do not despair, Katerina. I will fetch you clay from the riverbank off to the east, and you can use it to seal the holes. Then you will be able to fetch the water." Katerina felt the tightness in her chest begin to ease and waited patiently. When the doll returned, she took the clay and carefully sealed the holes in the sieve. With the doll's guidance, she was able to fill it with water from the well and hurried back to Baba Yaga's hut. Baba Yaga could not understand how the girl had managed such feats, but being a witch of her word, she refrained from harming Katerina. Instead, she asked the girl how she managed to complete such difficult tasks. "I owe it all to my mother's blessing," Katerina replied, carefully hiding the doll. "Ah," said Baba Yaga, narrowing her eyes. "Such blessings do not belong in my house. Very well, you shall have your light." With that, Baba Yaga took one of the skulls from the fence and placed it on a stick. The skull's eye sockets began to glow with a bright, eerie light. Baba Yaga handed the stick to Katerina and sent her on her way. Katerina knew better than to refuse the gift from Baba Yaga and returned home with it, the skull's light guiding her through the dark forest. When she arrived, her stepmother and stepsisters were both shocked and frightened by the sight of the glowing skull. As Katerina entered the house, the skull's light grew even brighter and its gaze fixed upon her tormentors. The stepmother and stepsisters were blinded by the light, and within moments were consumed by its fiery intensity, leaving nothing but ash. As shocked as she was, she realized how grateful she was to Baba Yaga for saving her from her persecutors. From that day on, Katerina lived in peace. She buried the glowing skull in the ground and went to stay with the old healer woman in the village who had treated her kindly. Eventually, her father returned from business, and Katerina's fortunes changed for the better. As time passed, Katerina's beauty and courage became known far and wide, and she was soon sought after by many suitors. However, it was the Tsar himself who, hearing of her virtues, came to seek her hand in marriage. Katerina became the Tsarina, and she ruled with wisdom and grace, always remembering the lessons she had learned from her mother and her little wooden doll. And so, the tale of Katerina the Beautiful and her encounter with Baba Yaga ends, the story of courage, kindness, and the enduring power of a mother's love. As we come to the end of this week's tale, remember, the legends of our weird world are boundless. If you've enjoyed immersing yourself in this dark fairy tale, please share, like, and subscribe to our channel for more enchanting content. Your support enables us to uncover the hidden tales that dwell in the shadows. Until next time, stay curious and be